Hi, and welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion related to health and healthcare. My name is Amy,
And my name is Sarah.
and we are your podcast hosts. Oh my God, Sarah. I don't even know what else to say. I have to first apologize because I've had so much technical difficulties. It has literally taken us almost half an hour to figure out how to record again because shame on us, we haven't been recording as frequently as we should.
No, we haven't. And we haven't done an episode of just the two of us for at least a month because I think we were last talking about all your injuries. And that's
Yeah.
obviously changed since last month. And actually, a whole bunch of stuff has happened in the world since last month. So
Oh my God,
I
yeah.
don't even know where to start except that in Ontario, at least, things are slowly opening back up again. There have been lineups, at least in my area, to places like clothing stores and hardware stores and things like that. So it's been really interesting to see. And of course, with the weather getting nicer, people are gathering and they're not maintaining their 6 foot distance. And I'm very embarrassed to say that I live in Toronto because everyone has seen what happened at some of the parks and whatnot. So
Do
it
they
is what
have the
it
little
is.
circles out now
I have
so you
seen,
guys can behave
yeah.
yourselves?
I mean, I don't go to that park, but definitely I have seen on the news that they've painted circles because people obviously don't know what 6 feet is or they don't care.
I think it's a measure. It's probably they don't care, which is unfortunate because clearly COVID-19 is still something out there that's making people sick and killing people. So I think again maintaining that the social distancing and proper hand hygiene and etiquette is important. But
Mhm.
we're not going to talk. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 today, right?
We are,
but
we are.
but before maybe we even get into that, there's been a lot that's happened over the last 4 weeks, and maybe we could just touch on a couple things here and there, and then we can jump into the episode. So,
Mhm.
Sarah, what have you been doing the last like 4 weeks? Well, it's not that we haven't spoken in between that time, but like,
What have
tell
I
the
been
people that we
doing?
listen to, what have you been doing?
Spending more time outdoors. I've been doing that. Trying to stay sane. I found this new Pilates channel that I use now. It's pretty good, and it's not too intense, which is what I like. But it really varies. So every day there's a new video. It focuses on a different part of your body, and there's ones that are like an hour. There are workouts as short as 20 minutes, which is good because I'm always on the go, so I can just pick what works for me. And just in terms of what else have I been doing? Just trying to keep my kids' brains from turning to mush. That's a new term that I use now. It's like you've watched too much TV, your brain is now mushed. You need to unmush your brain by doing some math or reading or going outside with me. Like, I don't know, just stuff like that.
Yeah. And I guess for
Hmm.
people our like US listeners or our listeners outside of Canada, we have not returned to school. So essentially that with COVID-19, they pretty much canceled the rest of the school year. And I guess the intent is for us to return in September. But again, there's discussions of possibly a second wave. So who knows when our children will ever be back to school. It makes me a little sad.
Yeah, I think I just had this mental realization that when I was reading initially that this whole thing might take 2 years, that that might be
uh,
the case. And I really don't want to think that way, but maybe I just have to. It's just like, I don't know. Remember when we first talked about this in our podcast? I think it was like mid March. We did a recording and we're saying, like, it feels like there's oceans of time that we have to be on lockdown, but don't worry, it's going to end soon. Well, I don't know. I feel like it's just going to gradually ease off, but it's never, we were just so carefree before this all happened, right? I feel like all of the things we did, we were just so carefree. We had no idea this was coming and that everybody's lives would change as much as it has.
Yeah, like I think we didn't fully understand the impact of, these other countries who went through COVID-19 before us because I think we were watching and maybe we thought we had our shit together and clearly we didn't. And yeah, it's changed. the way that I operate. It's changed the way that everybody else operates. It's kind of like the new normal, like walking into Costco and they just hand you a mask, right? Like
Yep.
I would say 90% of the people or more were wearing masks. And now, like my kids see people wearing masks. They know that when they're going into a store that they're going to be wearing a mask. It's just like, it's really, the whole culture has shifted, right?
Mhm.
Um, and like I don't know when it'll return to, I guess, normal, or maybe this is the new normal in terms of how we kind of go about our daily life until there's a vaccine or some type of cure or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's just, I think, like I wish we could throw 2020 in the garbage. It's been such a shit year so far. Like
Oh,
it's
I know.
just,
And it's not even half
I
over.
thought,
It's almost half over.
you know what?
Almost
It's
half
kind of
over.
funny because I was like, oh, New Year. I remember the New Year game. I'm like, you know what? This is going to be better than the last one. I got a great job. Things are going really well. And then it was just like COVID-19 in like February. And then like all these injuries. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm slowly breaking down. And it's just, I think, I think I just, like, I would love to just be sequestered by myself on an island just for a week, just like no social contact, no technology, just nothing, just me, the sun and sand and some water, and just like tune out. But of course, that's not really how things
Well,
can
actually,
operate.
I read recently that there are several Caribbean islands that are COVID free, and I'm thinking I would like to be one of those people and just, like, be in my own little bubble and not know what's happening and just live my life the way I was last year at this time, and, just be carefree again. I just wish we could do that.
Like
But
I'm almost thinking to myself, like, it would be so nice, like when things open up, that even if I just have like a girls' trip where it's just like, fuck, I'm just going out to like Las Vegas or whatever for a weekend, like, or you and I just go somewhere, or like, just, oh, I just need a break.
you know what I had
So,
planned? You know what I had planned before COVID? I have a friend who is a flight attendant, and her and I had been talking for a long time that we wanted to go away just the 2 of us on a girls' weekend, but
take me with you.
we both kept having kids, and then finally it was like, "Okay, our youngest kids are 2 now, so we can go away," and we were even saying, like, in April, let's just, like, go somewhere for a weekend. And she has this thing called jump seating, whereas you're basically on standby, and if there are empty
Right.
seats, then you just fill those seats last minute. So she was talking about that. I'm like, awesome. Any weekend, you just let me know when. And this was probably the first weekend in March that we discussed this. And of course, that's not going to happen for a long time, if ever. She's laid off right
Oh
now. Like,
no.
who even knows if the airlines are going to survive? But we had these grand ideas, and I don't know. We're going to have to do something more local, just like a spa weekend away around here.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. Like I was looking at some flights and hotels and stuff in Orlando for September, and I couldn't believe the prices. Like I was looking at like a 5-star hotel for 7 nights, and it was giving me prices like with a flight of like $500. I'm like, "Oh my God."
This is right
And then my
now?
mom's yeah, and then my mom's like, "Don't book anything." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." Like
Wow.
as much as I'm tempted to, there were like ridiculously like nice hotels, and I'm like, oh, this would be so nice just to go away. And of course, that's not going to happen.
Mhm. I
But
know.
oh well.
Well, one of the new developments that happened since we last had our podcast was that testing has expanded. So,
Right. Yeah, it's opened
so
up.
yeah, so the big announcement last week was that healthcare workers, regardless of if you have symptoms or not, could get tested. And I think the announcement this week was that anyone can get tested, if I'm not mistaken. Did you hear that, Amy?
Yeah, I thought that's what it was, pretty much saying that like you don't need to have symptoms, you can be asymptomatic, and now you can go freely and get tested for
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19. Like, I mean, I think it's really good that they've opened up the testing. I think they've had this conversation for the longest time that lots of people who are asymptomatic can have COVID-19, walk around, feel great, and obviously are carrying it and pass it on to people who unsuspectingly, unknowingly. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it's really good that they've opened up the testing. And I wonder, is there someone that we might know who's got a test done?
Well, I got a test done. I got a test done early last week because the announcement, as we said, I think it came out on Sunday night or Monday morning. I think it was
Right,
over the
right,
weekend because I started to look into testing sites in my area, and I was like, I've been wanting to get tested for a while, but I just couldn't justify it because I haven't been in contact with anyone with confirmed COVID-19. I'm not
right,
routinely looking after patients in the hospital. So I really, to be honest, I didn't want to take someone's spot that really needed it. So I was sort of waiting for permission to get tested. And then when that
right.
announcement came out, I actually didn't even know where to go because at my job right now, I routinely tell staff that they should get tested if they feel like they've been exposed, if they have symptoms. But beyond telling them to get tested, I never looked into the logistics of what that meant. And so the first thing I did was call my family doctor. And of course, they're like, we don't do testing. You need to go to a testing site. So then I start Googling where to go. And they had told me, oh, there's a hospital that you can go to where it's drive through. So I looked up that hospital's website, and the messaging on that was, there's no guarantee that you will get tested, even if you
Oh,
come and wait. So I'm like, does that mean if I wait all day, I may not even get tested? Because that's ridiculous. I don't want to be waiting in my car
right.
all day. So then on the way home from work, I drove past a different testing site and I saw this long line. I think it was around 3 or 4 p.m. So I'm like, hell's no, I'm not even going to do that. So then that was the Monday, and then I decided I would go first thing in the morning on Tuesday, like before they open, so that I could just get in there early and get my test done and just be on my way. So I get there at 7:45 and the site is supposed to open at 8. And I was the seventh person in line. So I'm like, okay, this is not bad, I thought I'd be the first, but I was obviously not as keen as other people. And then right at 8 o'clock, the doors open and two security guards come out, and they're in their full like vest and their uniform, but they also have their masks on with a face shield, and they're like, "Who's here for testing? This is only for testing. Is everyone here for testing?" And we're like, "Yes, yes, yes." And by the way, everybody in line was wearing a mask, but like of um, varying shapes and sizes, and applying it properly. So then the first few people start going in, and I'm just waiting patiently. And then when I get to the front, they're like, "Is this a new mask that you have on?" And I'm like, "Yes, I had a surgical mask on." So, yes, it was new. And they're like, "Okay, sanitize your hands to the right, walk in and wait." So I kind of felt like I was either voting or I was getting ready to board a plane. Like they were just so directive
Yeah,
of
it
where you
sounds
had to
so
go,
militaristic.
and it was like there was so many rules, and like you just had to stand there until they told you what to do next. So I sanitized my hands and I walked in, and they're like, there's taping on the floor, so red taping with arrows and x's directing you where to go. So I walk straight through, and then there's like a booth with glass, the plexiglass,
Right,
and
right,
I'm
right.
standing, and there's like a x on the floor, so that's where I'm supposed to stand. And then they told me to, oh, so before I even came through the door, they had said, make sure you have your health card ready so that you don't have to go into your bag once you're in the center.
Right.
So I just had my health card in my hand, and they said, okay, now hold your health card up to the glass, but don't touch the glass. Just hold it up 1 inch away from the glass. So I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So I'm holding up my card. And for those of you in the States, in Ontario, we have universal healthcare, of course, but we have an Ontario health insurance plan, and you have this health card that you just show anytime you need healthcare. Um, so I hold up my card, and then she's asking me for my name and my address, and she's like, "I can't see your birth date. What does that say? Is that
Would it
1965?"
have just been hope?
So I'm like, I get that she's probably like can't see my face because I've got a mask on, but I'm pretty
Oh my
sure.
god.
Amy, do I look like I'm 55 years old? Because I'm pretty sure
Sarah,
I'm
you
not
know
born in
what?
1965.
You should have just like moved the screen and slapped her in the face and been like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, what?
No.
But you know what? First of all, why did she ask you just to read the information off of the health card? Like,
Well, I mean,
if
like,
she's
I guess
so blind that when she's like, hold it an inch away, and then she can't see anything, when she just friggin' ask you the questions?
well,
Oh
I
my
literally had to
god.
repeat everything that was on my health card, so, like, I don't know.
I can't.
If anything,
I'm
I
so
feel like I look
sorry.
10 years younger than I actually am, because I definitely don't look 55, and I'm like,
Oh
"Okay,
my god.
she's not obviously not really looking at me, and she's probably just, like, stressed, and she's trying to, like, get the people through." So I'm like, "Nope, it's not 65, it's 85." But at least she got the 5 right.
That's a huge difference in years there.
And then as I was standing there, there's, like, a piece of paper taped to the plexiglass. It says, "For COVID-19 results, call this number." But I'm like, I don't think I'm allowed to take my phone out. I obviously don't have a pen and paper on me, so how am
Oh
I
my
even supposed to, like,
god.
get this number? And I'm trying to memorize the number as she's, like, typing the information in, but I didn't. And then she's like, "Okay." She's like, so she got my information. I guess overall it was a pretty seamless registration process. And then she's like, "Okay, now
Except for
walk."
the thought that she thought you were like 55 years old.
I'm actually like, because I feel like I look really young for my age, I actually get really excited now when I go to buy booze and they don't ask me for my ID, because that means I look like I'm at least, what, 25? I
Yeah,
think
I
it
guess
means,
so.
like, yeah.
They have to assume that you're well over 19 or
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so she finishes her stuff. She's like, "Okay, walk past me to the left and wait in the waiting room." So I follow the markings on the floor and I go wait in this. It looks like a gym that's been converted to a waiting room because, well, I don't really know why, but anyway. And there's all these X's marked on the floor, but I'm the only one there because I got there really early. So then
right.
I'm like standing on one of the X's and they're like, "Okay, come through now. But don't come through the door you just came in. Come through the other door." But they were really
Oh
side
my
by
god.
side. Like there's no wall dividing the two doors. So I'm like, "Okay." So I just go through again, and then I get to this almost like an open bay with bed spaces, and then there's curtains to, divide the bed spaces. And then finally, I meet the nurse who's gonna be doing my test, and she was obviously she had full PPE on, like everything, like gown, gloves, mask, face shield, like everything. And then
Right.
she's like, "Okay, sit down. I'll take your blood pressure." And of course, I'm like, "Blood pressure?" I'm like, "Did they really like wash that down before like I got there?" But I have to believe that they did because I don't want to
They
question her
probably used
because
a cavi wipe or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, so she does my blood pressure and my O2 sat and my temperature. She never told me what my blood pressure was, but I probably should have asked. Not that I'm worried about it, but I probably should have asked. And then she was like, "Okay, so why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm a healthcare worker, and I was told that I could get tested even though I don't have symptoms." So she's like writing down on her paper. It was pretty uneventful after that, because she just did the swab. So as you know, it's a flocked swab, and it has to go right to the back of your nasal passages. And it
Right.
doesn't
Yeah.
hurt. It just feels like it tickles. It tickles and it makes your eyes water, and then I started sneezing after. But I guess the other weird part was I was told I had to have my mask on the whole time, and even just to do the swab, they said to lower my mask just to below my nose to keep my mouth covered still, so that she
Right.
could do the swab, and then right away I had to put my mask back on.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. So the whole process took what, like 10, 15 minutes or less?
um, like including the time waiting in line, or like when I
No, no, no.
so
From entrance to swab.
I would say 5 minutes. It was
Wow,
pretty fast.
okay.
Yeah, and then, somehow I started talking to her, and then, she said that, well, at first I asked her, I said, "Did you choose to be here, or were you, like, told that you had to work in this assessment center?" And she said that her unit closed down, so she was
Right.
basically, like, told reassigned to this department.
Voluntold.
Voluntold, exactly. But I said, "Hey, at least you know you have all the PPE you need,"
Right,
which
and she's
is
got a
true.
job because lots of people have been laid off during this entire time, right? So,
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
that's always at least she still has employment, so that's good. But
Yeah, and then, the other thing was they said that they were gonna call me with the results, but if I didn't pick up, that they wouldn't leave a voicemail, which I also found a bit weird. because if you're giving permission, sometimes the hospital will ask you, right, is it okay to leave a voicemail? And usually, if you say yes, then they'll leave a voicemail. But in this case, they said, no, we can't. And I just didn't bother questioning why. I was like, okay, I'm not going to fight the system. I will just keep my phone on me like at all times so I don't miss this call.
Right, right,
And but in the meantime, they had also said that there was a website you could go to look at your results, and that it could take up to 4 days. So I was thinking, like, if I don't get the results by Friday, that's only 3 days. So I may well have to wait until next week to get my results, which
right.
is fine. I wasn't in a rush or anything. So I was checking every day, nothing was up, and then I got a call Friday around noon, and they said I was negative. So yay!
Yay!
This
Well,
story has
how
a
about I
happy
ask?
ending. Mhm.
I was going to actually ask you before, but like, what was your reason or rationale? Like, why did you want to get tested?
Well, truthfully, I didn't suspect that I had anything. I was just thinking more
Right,
for my peace of mind because my parents are older and we haven't seen them for a long time. I just thought, like, I just want to know for my peace of mind if I have something, right? And I thought, like, if it's available to me, why not get tested? I always wanted to get tested anyway, just so I would know. And obviously, I know that the results can change because it's only negative at that point in time. If I were to be in contact with someone that had it, like, this test result may very well change. But that was my rationale. I just wanted to know. I'm that kind of person. I just like to know
right, right, right.
things so I can plan accordingly. So that's why I wanted to get tested.
Yeah, like I'm a big chicken because I've been thinking about it, and I was just like, I have like really bad allergies, and I think the thought of something going up my nose and going back that far is just abhorrent to me. So I'm gonna like, you know, if I start showing symptoms, or I think I've been around someone who has been hacking up a lung or whatever, and maybe that at that point I would, but I'll be honest, I'm a big scaredy cat, and I don't think I'm gonna go get tested anytime soon. But obviously that may change as well. Like if for whatever reason my employment status changes or something, I have to get tested, then of course I will do I will do my due diligence and do the test. But other than that, I'm a big chicken, and I'm like, no, Sarah's so brave.
Well, my biggest fear actually was physically going to the center because I'd be exposing myself to people that may well have COVID. So that was my
Right.
biggest fear, really. It wasn't the fear of knowing or not knowing, it was more like going to a hotspot essentially to get tested,
Yeah,
and
putting yourself at a
that was
little bit of risk, yeah.
that was the other reason why I wanted to go first thing in the morning. I thought that, everything's probably cleaned from last night and I would be minimizing exposure to the number of people I'd have to be in contact with. So, and the thing is, like, I was kind of paranoid. So obviously I washed my hands after I left, but even as soon as I got home, I changed my whole outfit because I just felt like I didn't want to risk anything. I just changed my
Yeah,
whole
no, I
outfit
hear
when I
you.
got
I
home.
would I would have done the same thing. I would have been like gone into my garage and stripped off and like burned these clothes.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
know,
I
like,
probably would
well,
have
I
done the
was
same thing,
very
yeah.
careful. I mean, I was very careful not to touch anything. So I don't even think the whole time I touched anything with my hands. I just sat down on the chair that was in the assessment area, I guess.
Right,
And
right.
then I started getting paranoid. So I wasn't going to change my clothes initially, but then I thought, well, I sat down on that chair. And how do I know if they cleaned that chair with a cavi wipe? Because I couldn't remember what material it was made of, like if it was just a hard plastic chair or one that
Or if
was
it was like a
covered with
cloth,
something. So I'm like, I better
right?
just change everything. I don't know. I just don't know.
No, like I hear you. Like I think even now I'm even more extra cautious when I go out, and like I've always been a kind of person who likes my personal space, and like if I'm standing in line, people standing too close to me, I kind of like give them the eye. And now I'm even more cognizant of it. So it's just kind of like there's been times where like I've been like walking in a store and like I'm trying to get to the bananas or something, and someone's standing there, so just stand there waiting, like glaring at them, like pick up your damn fruit and move, lady. But like
Oh,
I
I know.
mean,
I'm guilty of that too
I'm
because
just
I'm
kind
like,
of
"Oh,
like,
I'm like, "Oh, someone's been waiting this whole time while I've been selecting fruit," like, taking my
But the
sweet
thing is,
time.
just like grab your stuff and go. Or like there are people that are just I don't know, like it's really bizarre where like previously you wouldn't like if someone was standing there getting fruit or whatever, you would just go and pick up whatever you need. But now it's like you kind of stand there and wait, or like like navigating the aisles and trying to like hold your breath. And it's so funny. My kids are just like, oh, they're killing me. They're just like, mom, do I have to hold my breath if I go into this area? I'm like, no, like you got a mask on and you don't have to hold your breath. And they're just really funny. And I mean,
Did
I
you
think
did you
the
get them
hardest part
kid-sized
still
masks?
is
Like
I still haven't seen my parents. So
oh,
actually, my mom made the masks. So I haven't been able to see her. She was in Florida. When did she leave? So she left early January, and then she came back. I guess it would have been end of February, early March, kind of when the whole thing was starting to kind of blow over here in Ontario. But I haven't been able to see her since. So my kids and I, we really miss her. But she made us all masks. Of course, the masks that she made myself and Jordan are too small, so they're all like for the kids now.
aw.
But yeah, but like it'd be nice to kind of at least see my parents at some point in time. So
My parents have come up twice now just to do, like, a porch visit, and my mom wore a mask and gloves both times, and I think it really freaked out my son.
oh
So, it
dear.
took him a while to warm up, and then by the time he warmed up to her, she was like, "Okay, we're gonna go now."
It's time to
Because
go. Oh
yeah,
no.
and he's like, "Oh, where are they going?" And I had to so this has happened 2 weekends in a row now, and I've had to explain why, and he gets it a bit more now. It's just really hard for him, A, to not see her, and then B, to see her, and then have her leave after only half an hour.
Yeah, like the
So
adjustment for these kids, like I mean, I think they're much more resilient than we are. And I mean they've been exposed to a lot less. So to them, like it's not this huge change, right? Whereas us, we're like, okay, we lived all our lives without wearing masks and all this other kind of technical stuff that we kind of have to navigate. Where they're just like, okay, I'll wear a mask and I'll go into a store. I'm like, oh, okay, they're still so innocent, and they just don't really understand. So, but I mean,
yeah,
we
and
just
it's
take
a
it day
good
by day,
and bad thing, because like you said, they don't really have anything to compare it to. But at the
right?
same time, I feel like they're missing out so much that I had in my childhood and didn't have to worry about necessarily. But
Well, I
it's just
mean,
how you present it to them and how you feel, right? They can pick up on your emotions too.
absolutely. And I mean like I was saying, this year's kind of like a shit show. I think 2020 is going to be very interesting for history books in general, because there's just not only I and of course I'm not trying to kind of get into this because it would be a whole other conversation, but alongside of COVID-19, now we have the whole political unrest that's happening in the States again with you know that particular individual
Mhm, mhm.
who essentially we know, we all know the story where a police officer was kneeling on him, and then now he's died, and this police officer is now finally charged with like third degree murder. Sounds like a bunch of bullshit, and there's a lot of protesting going on. So
What
I think
is
it'll be
even
very,
third-degree murder? Is that manslaughter? I thought there was, like, first
honestly,
and second.
I think for most states there's only for the first and second degree murder, and then in other, I think like in Minnesota, it's like one of the rare states that have this third degree murder charge, which is really I don't know, if you look it up, it's really a bunch of bollocks if you ask me. But I mean, I think the name should be named. His name's George Floyd, and there's a lot of political unrest, but I mean, it's just been a whirlwind of a year in general. And I think this will
Yeah,
be
I
an
mean
interesting year for
mhm.
history for our children at some point in time, too. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a
See
lot
what
happening in the
happens.
States for sure. I think it was just something that was waiting to happen, and it's just compounded by the stress of this pandemic, and, there's just so much going on politically that we are kind of isolated from somewhat in Canada, but we read about it as though it's our own country. But
Well, the thing is, I don't know how much, like, I mean, this is definitely a topic for another podcast. I mean, I don't know how far we are removed from it, because even there was that incident with, I think her name is Amy Cooper, where she was like in New York in, where was it, Central Park, walking her dog without a leash, and like this black guy was like, hey, you should leash your dog, and she's like, I'm gonna call the police and tell them that you're harassing me, and like I
mhm,
watched her phone call while I guess he recorded, and it's just like, it's just unbelievable, the racism that is so blatant out there. And like, we have an episode where we talk about racism in healthcare, and actually, interestingly enough, I saw that the Ontario Medical Association actually put out a statement about that. Essentially, they're saying that racism has no place in healthcare, but we very well know and have seen it ourselves, where it's just like, it is rampant, and I don't know what the solution is. And I think like there's a lot of people that are saying that, like, you know other cultures, particularly I guess European cultures or Caucasian people, they're the ones that need to kind of almost come up and be like, this is a problem and we need to do something differently about it. But I mean,
exactly.
again, like I said, this could be a whole other podcast. And I mean, I think uh, with this particular case that's happening in the States now, there are a lot of people coming out and speaking about it. And I think there'll be much more to come. Like, I think
Yeah,
this is definitely not going to be going away. So,
we recorded an episode, it was 2 months ago, so it was episode 12. It was about
mm,
racism in healthcare and our personal stories from the bedside. So definitely, check that one out if you guys are interested in hearing more about our experiences. And, I think it's something that's worthwhile to talk about, as much as we can, because it's about having the conversation and not just the same people, right? We need to have everyone talking about it. And like you said, Amy,
absolutely.
um, the people in privilege are the ones that are going to have to make the change. I mean,
Well, they got to get the ball rolling, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's, if you think about like just like the history and kind of how all of like the whole eugenics and all these different movements, they are kind of perpetuated by I guess it would be those privileged people, right? And I think they talk about these protests, and they talk about like, okay, peaceful protests. I think um minorities have been doing that for many years, and it's getting to a point where like, what else can they do in terms of protesting? And I'm not saying by any means that people should be looting or being violent and blowing things up or whatever the case may be, but I can at least empathize and understand what's going on. And I could never imagine, like, I mean, I think about it to myself. Like, I was actually talking to one of my nurse friends from one of the hospitals that I used to work at, and she was asking me, she was like, oh, like, how do you feel about the fact that you have two mixed children, or she was saying black children. And I said, well, one, they are mixed, but like, I understand what you're saying, because she's like, are you concerned about raising them? And I said, no. I said, there's only so much I can give to them. Like, I will love them, I will teach them, I will educate them, and I will let them know what about the system. But am I going to be fearful for them and have to fear for their lives? Um, I don't think that that's the way that I'd want to go about raising them. I think it's more about giving them that awareness. And I mean, again, I'll be honest, I would never move to the States, because I think it is different there. Not saying that it's that we don't have racism here, because of course we do, but I think the history in the States is so ingrained with some of these nuances in terms of racism, that it's just definitely not a place that I would go to live. But anyways, I digress. Like I said, Sarah, this is definitely another podcast episode that we could probably touch on, but definitely not one that we should get into today, because
hmm.
it's, yeah, we can talk about it for a long time. So
All right. Yeah, so hopefully, Amy, you will get tested soon and you can tell me all about it.
yeah, no. No, 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 no.
But I think you've had enough healthcare for 1 year already, and it's
Could you
only the end of
imagine?
the
It would only be my luck that it's like, oh, I wake up one morning and I'm like, Sarah, I don't feel good. Maybe I'll go get tested. And then I end up with it. No, 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 no bad luck for me. I'm not getting tested. I'm not getting COVID-19. I'm going to
just
stay
don't
in my little
just
bubble.
don't get injured anymore because then you'll have to be an inpatient and you'll expose yourself to something from someone. God knows
Oh
what.
my God. It's just, honestly, it's just been one thing after the other. And
Okay, I'm
I
not
just
here to
hope that
lecture
there's
you.
no
I'm not here to
more.
lecture you, but you did tell me that you're not using your crutch anymore. So there's
You
that.
outed me, Sarah.
I'm
How
telling
dare
on you.
you? Oh my gosh. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, no. And your cast is off, right? So you need
My
to take
cast is
care of your
off.
hand.
Yes. Well,
I don't know what you're supposed to do or not do, but I hope you're doing the right
I'm
thing.
pretty
That's all.
sure I'm not supposed to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but I can guarantee you, as soon as the club opens, I'll be there.
Okay, but you're not doing it right now,
No,
obviously.
I'm not. No, Jordan has asked me if I wanted to do some like sparring with him, just kind of like positional sparring, and I was like, nah, it's okay. So I've
And
just been on my spin bike, and I've done a little bit of resistance stuff, and I start physio next week, so
is it
one day at a
is it
time.
virtual physio? I'm just curious how that's
No,
gonna work.
I'm going to be going into physio. Like, I actually go into the clinic on Wednesday. I have no idea what to expect, so we'll see what that'll be like.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
physio for my left, right knee, shoulder, neck, and thumb.
Oh god. Just don't do another squat to a lunge. I think that's what messed you up, right?
No squats to lunges. No, no, no. I'm
Oh my
behaving
gosh.
myself.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I hope you guys had fun listening to our episode. If you could please like, share, and subscribe, leave us a review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.